Sorry, what was that, Alex?
I just said, how are you this morning?
Oh, I'm good. Things are going well. I just got back from a trip, so I'm recovering a little bit, but things are good.
Alex, wouldn't you like to make fun of him for going on a trip?
Yeah, it's usually Kim. I know that.
Yeah. I was thinking about that, Kim, and then I thought, well, if Kim goes, I guess everybody else can go too.
Fair enough.
Are we still waiting on a quorum?
We do not have a 2/3 majority vote right now, which we will need for our the tentative budget for anything financial. Jamie Davidson said he will not be able to make it today, so he won't be in attendance. But I believe we should have some others attending.
Krista, can you say that again? Who did you say isn't able to attend?
Jamie Davidson from Orem.
Okay.
Could be a really short meeting, or lack of a meeting. Don't want to have to reschedule if we don't have to.
Yeah. Do we have any board members there in the office? Doesn't look.
Nope. We got Josh in the room here, so Josh is with us. Oh, he's on video here, but his audio comes through mine, I guess. Yeah, just keep himself.
Okay, here we go.
All right, we are on YouTube streaming, so compliant with that. And I think that makes a quorum, isn't it, Krista? With Jason
Yes.
and Matt joining.
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to visit with us. Should be a fairly short, succinct meeting, hopefully. First item is an approval of minutes from the February 8th, 2021 board meeting. Are there any proposed additions or deletions to those minutes? Okay, if none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes from February 8th, 2021.
Okay, was that Matt?
Matt Dahl, yep.
Matt Dahl, okay.
I'll
Thank you, Matt. Is there a
second
second? Okay, Nicole? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? If so, raise your hand. Okay, very good. Appears unanimous. Thank you. Next item is consideration of a resolution adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 22, the year that's coming up, and establishing a time and a place for the public hearing regarding the budget. So Laurie, you have some background on that?
I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you all see that? Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. It's early April. We are required to adopt a tentative budget before the first regularly scheduled meeting in May. And so this is a starting point for us. We haven't sat down together as an executive team to review the requests, and we will be doing that in April and May prior to the adoption of the final budget in June. but I want to go over what we have proposed as a tentative, and I stress tentative budget. For UIA operating revenues, we budgeted 25 million. We're projecting 25.3 million in revenue, and we're budgeting for 28 million. That's a $3 million increase. That's conservatively estimating 500 new customers per month for UIA. And the amount, the contribution from CAP-I, that's the money that comes in to help pay the debt service for the cities until the revenue is adequate to cover the debt service. That CAP-I ends for all of our bonds except for the UIA Series 2021 and the Clearfield bond in 2023. So that's the reason for the drop in that contribution from CAP-I. On operating expenses for UIA, we budgeted 21 million. We're projecting slightly under that, 19 million. And we are proposing for fiscal year 2022 expenses of 24 million. That is a $2.7 million increase. And most of that is the fees that come over from UIA to support operations at Utopia. That is tied to the number of connections and the number of addresses passed. And so as those numbers grow, the amount that UIA, pursuant to the service contract, pays over to Utopia. I am proposing an increase in the dollar amount that Utopia receives. If I can just jump to that for 1 minute. On the service contract, the management fee, which UIA pays for executive time, the UIA Utopia administration budget and other key managers, portion of customer service, is going up about 18% from fiscal year 2021. Some of that is increases in costs. Others is a review of the Utopia budget and determination of what UIA fairly should be covering for Utopia. The larger part of that, the $5.6 million, is related to the service contract. So UIA pays $6.50 per month for each active connection. So a lot of that growth is due to the increase in connections. I am proposing an increase in that fee from $6.50 per connection to $7.65. On the provisioning, each new UIA connection pays $14.30 one time. I'm proposing a fee increase to $15. Field maintenance, UIA addresses passed times $1.20 per month. We are anticipating 20,000 additional addresses, which is again the largest part of that increase. I am proposing an increase in that fee from $1.20 to $2. And then the shelter maintenance fee, $400 annual per UIA hut and cabinet.
Hey, Lori.
So, yes.
I'm just interrupting there. How did you get at those new amounts that are being charged between Utopia and UIA? What was the logic to get at those per customer numbers?
A lot of it is the increases that Utopia has in network engineering costs. We've added network engineers. We have also increased the amount of time that the OSP staff, the outside plant staff, spends on the network. The number of employees has increased. With annual raises, we haven't adjusted these fees for a couple of years. So as the salaries and benefits go up, the costs to UIA and to Utopia also go up.
And just conceptually, I mean, that balance of, money and costs and everything, should grow a lot more on the UIA side, and UIA should pay more. As UIA is, or as we're growing, Utopia is not really growing. But UIA is growing significantly. So when you talk about what are we dealing with, you know, from a staffing perspective and costs of things, most of what we do is UIA. You know, UIA has grown to be much larger than Utopia as an entity and as far as revenues and customers and all these other things. And so I think over time it's going to make sense for UIA to pay more and more of its share and you know, more, the benefit to Utopia is really to offset its expenses rather than, you know, pay for a lot of things. I mean, this is the mechanism for paying for things. So it is paying for things, I guess, over to the other entity, but it's not paying an external entity. This is a good thing if we can increase the amount of money that Utopia or UIA is paying Utopia, because that's a mechanism to relieve the burden for the Utopia cities and their relative expenses into the project, which is relatively shrinking because the overall is growing.
And that makes sense to me. And frankly, it makes sense to me a lot because I'm sure when we originally set the 650 and the 120 per month, I mean, those are hard numbers to get down just based off some estimates and what you think is going to happen.
Right.
So that doesn't surprise me that much. And I'm not surprised to see that we had to adjust that number, even though I'm sure growth and new customers does also help with some of the new employee costs and things like that we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
Overall, the economy of scale is getting better with everything, but you know, it's kind of like, hey, as we have opportunity and we can justify it, we'd like those numbers to be bigger so that we can offset Utopia burden.
And also, Jason, to respond to your question, I did go through the Utopia budget. I looked at each department's budget and did an analysis of those costs that should be shared with UIA. The last time we adjusted these fees was 2 years ago. We didn't do any adjustment with them last year. So it does get more money over to Utopia, but there's also support for why those numbers are what they are.
And there's some other areas we probably need to look at that to tweak where UIA should probably be paying more. I think there's a lot of things that Utopia pays for in co-location and interconnects and things like that, but those are done so that there's revenue opportunities, and those revenues largely come in at UIA. But it's very difficult to you know, categorize everything perfectly in a UIA versus a Utopia bucket, and we're constantly trying to catch those and adjust them and make them fair. We're not trying to, you know, do anything that's shady or anything. It's all the same. I mean, it's almost the same cities. You know, someday I'm sure it would be nice to just merge the things into one entity, but there's a lot of reasons we can't do that. So we try to balance things so that they're fair between the two entities to say, does this fly, and would both entities be supportive of these changes? And are they justified? But at the same time, we're constantly trying to put them in the right buckets.
One of the balancing factors too is the idea that Utopia does. One of the functions of Utopia is to operate the network, and so there's always whether or not Utopia or UIA should be paying for more of the backbone. It's a question. I mean, that was pretty much established when Utopia was formed. And so back to Roger's question, how much should UIA be contributing toward that backbone? And a lot of the additional cities that we add, there are enhancements to that backbone. It has had a lot of improvements since all the money started being spent at UIA. And so that's another reason that we need to look at what additional infrastructure at Utopia has been put in place just to support the other UIA cities. Does anybody have any more questions on the service contract?
Just so it sounds like there's a lot of different places between what Laurie, what you just said, and Roger, what you were saying, where these adjustments could or should be made, and it makes sense that they be made. And I see that in this budget it reflects that shift. How do we get the rest of the way? When do we get the rest of that way in those changes you were just discussing?
I think it's going to be every year. We're going to come back and adjust these things and just say what money is available, what expenses are out there, and what is the appropriate balance between Utopia and UIA, and that every year we're coming back saying this is the balance to both benefit UIA and its ability to finance and grow and expand revenues of the system, but also on the Utopia side to offset cost and pay off debts. And so it's kind of looking at those two things of the growth and expansion of UIA and the offsetting of costs and debt relief at Utopia. I think every year we're getting in a better and better position to handle those two things. And we're just going to have to sit, this is what we do. We sit down and say, okay, how do we address both of those things so that both entities are treated fairly, and that those costs are appropriate, but that also that we can balance our budgets. And generally, the goals of all the cities are generally the same. We want to finish the build out of the network and offset debt relief. And so it's not been a problem of saying, here's this thing that UIA wants and Utopia might not want. Generally, the interests of both entities have been very well aligned. And I think we communicate really well between the two entities because they're the same cities, almost. But we do have to treat them as two separate legal entities, which makes Laurie's job very difficult from financing.
I totally get that. It's just that there were a couple of things where it sounded like we were saying they were known, that there were known things that it seemed like it would make sense for for Utopia to pay for. Sorry, I said that backwards. UIA to pay for because of those system improvements that benefit more than the Utopia. And since I hear what you're saying on the annual adjustments, I guess I was just confused because it sounded like there were sort of known things that seemed like they should have, or that that UIA should be paying for to Utopia. And so I was just confused on that.
Matt, I
think there's a lot more we could do. We just sat down and said, what is everything, if UIA was going to pay everything that it possibly could that could be justified, I think we could do a lot more. But at the same time, we don't want to harm UIA to the point where it can't pay its bills and continue to grow and expand and finish the objective of building out the network. So I think it's incrementally every year we come back and say, let's chop off a little bit more. Let's chop off a little more here and hit there so that we're continuing to improve the financial situation at Utopia while also not cutting the legs out from underneath UIA's ability to grow and expand and do what it needs to do. But yeah, I don't think we're never going to have a one-time, this is the last time we're going to have to change these rates or whatever. I think it's going to be every year we go back, say, here's a tweak here, here's a payment here. Everybody okay with those? We'll be very transparent with what we're doing and why those are justified, and happy to answer questions on those. But yeah, I don't think there's any, it's going to be an annual thing perpetually.
It is, and one reason it will be annual is because as we grow, we still have good economy of scale, but we will be adding, we here or there, we need to add a network engineer. Here or there, we need to add an additional NOC tech. In addition, the costs of all of those salaries and benefits increase every year. So if we didn't adjust the fee at UIA, Utopia would fall behind. Asset, the management fee, that's about $2.7 million. That wasn't put in place until probably 3 years ago. And it was our auditors, Kennington and Christensen, who raised the issue of, while the service contract is reimbursing for a lot of the day-to-day operations, Utopia, all of the employees are Utopia employees. Utopia pays all of the employees. UIA has no paid employees. And so you have Roger's time, for example, Josh's time, a lot of my time, Kim's and Aaron's time is now spent on UIA. And so they were concerned that Utopia was shouldering too much of the cost burden for the growth of UIA. So that management fee was put in place about 3 years ago.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Laura, Laurie, do you have anything else to present regarding the budget?
Just a little bit. I'm almost
Okay.
done.
Or you're-
I do want to show that for 2022, I know that we will have more partner cities coming online because they're lining up. But basically right now, for 2022, I show, and this is again a tentative budget, an additional 20 million with the tentative addition of one city that's we'll probably be talking, I'm sure Roger will be talking about that a little more today. But with that 20 million in bond proceeds and spending down the balance of what we have in construction funds, we are getting close to having all of the Utopia cities built out. So the proposed construction for 22 and 23 will be additional partner cities. One other, nope, I think that's all. Nope, I think we're good. Does anybody have any questions on this? Again, we'll be bringing it back to you in June for final adoption.
Laurie, I have one question. Go ahead, Roger.
Well, I was just going to make a comment. I would expect this to, we're going to have to revise this budget during the year based on cities partnering with us, but there's also a lot of other things that are at play out there, and that would be the what do they call it? The American Rescue Plan Act money that cities have gotten a lot of money. There's a lot of cities talking to us about potentially using money from that for broadband infrastructure. There's also the state grant program that's becoming available. There's this new Broadband Act that's coming through from the federal government. There's a lot of big dollar opportunities coming down the pipeline that probably wildly skew this and bring some really great opportunities for us. But this is kind of the status quo, what we're looking at a pretty conservative forecast. But just, we think there's going to be this is going to be a great year, I think, as far as other funding opportunities as well as new city partnerships. And all that obviously will significantly adjust this budget over the year. So just that comment.
Agree. I didn't want to budget for things that we don't know. I know that number will be much bigger, but just wanted to throw in what we are fairly confident in.
Yep.
Okay. Laurie, on your spreadsheet where you were talking about CAPI ending.
Yes.
So maybe this is a question for Roger or Kim or Laurie, but with at West Point, Payson, and Morgan, I assume that all of those cities are meeting their target take rates. The cap size is dropping off, but they're ahead of that. Okay.
Every one of them, yes.
Good. And then the other thought, maybe we've talked about this before, I can't recall, but the note that you've made on the bottom of the spreadsheet on expenses, where it talks about assuming completion of UIA cities, the original cities, which we've talked about before, but we considered maybe doing some kind of a proclamation or a statement or a little token or something that you guys could, as the head of Utopia, maybe go to those original member cities and present something to them, officially recognizing the realization of the vision, and just kind of solidify the point that this is a success and the mission accomplished kind of a thing. I don't know how other board members feel about that, but I think that might be an important milestone to acknowledge in some cities more than others, but just generally and celebrate that success just a little bit with something formal or something we could give to them that recognizes that and thank them for their perseverance and contribution through thick and thin. I don't know if anybody has objections to that, but I think that might be nice to acknowledge that.
I think that's a great idea. I think it's a great idea to have Kim look at some creative things.
We bring streamers to this announcement too, Alex.
Sorry, we're not board members, so I'd love to hear board members' thoughts on this. So.
Like Alex, we haven't thought about going back and doing anything like that, but we are working on statements every time we hit at least the break even on these projects, but for the press and everything. But it is good to go back and celebrate it with the city. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, this is Nicole. I agree with that. I think it's really important, especially right now, and especially given we could call this the "We Were Right" award. Give ourselves a thank goodness we did this 15 years ago or however long it's been now. But I think pointing out that idea that had we not, that's especially poignant for West Valley. Had we not done this, and even in the places where we're not quite built out yet, this last year would have been so much more difficult for our residents and students and the other sort of traditionally underserved areas. And we still had some struggles, but I just think, again, not to be too flippant about it, but we were right. And we've crossed a lot of hurdles and we've stuck through. And I do think, given the new sort of revenue streams and funding that are coming out right now that we can take advantage of, and just the fact that some of our cities really have gone through a lot of hard things to make this what it is. Any clever ways to celebrate that and any helpful ways, I think would be it's a good time. I think that's spot on, Alex. And I think it's a good thing. And especially for some of the elected officials that don't really have a full recollection of how things have been. And maybe even more so for the ones who do remember what it's been like. I think that's a great suggestion. I appreciate that. And I don't have any great ideas either. We probably shouldn't call it the "We Were Right" award, but I know you guys will make it all wonderful and appropriate.
Thank you, Nicole. Any other board members have any thoughts or concerns?
Just that I think it's a great idea, and I agree with everything that Alex, that you've said, and Nicole, what she said as well. But I also don't have any great ideas for the "We Were Right" award.
Okay. Well, Raj, maybe if you and your good team, wonderful team, could think about some ideas. And again, I think we ought to do it. You ought to do it in a personal presentation. Maybe try to go to each city and individually thank them. I think it's also an opportunity, not to belabor it without being too obvious. They're, at least in my jaded opinion, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but it seems like politically, it's in the world today, it's getting harder and harder for elected officials to do the right thing as opposed to the expedient thing. There's just so many pressures and shrieking, shrilly voices that it's really difficult for at least the elected officials I interact with sometimes to hold a correct position in the face of that, knowing that the benefit won't come for years down the road. And I think this is an opportunity, a perfect example of maybe just to thank them in their support, even though some of the ones sitting today weren't part of the original fight. But just let them know that there are occasions when it is good just to hold your ground and stubbornly do that because it's the right thing to do. And it really pays off in the end, and communities benefit tremendously from that. It's not the easy way, but it's the right way. And as Nicole well said, where would any of us be? Where would the state of Utah be, really, if not for Utopia and the reach of Utopia? It's just been significant. And I think that's something you could easily point out and everybody would recognize. And that wasn't a coincidence that it's happened. So anyway, just a couple of thoughts, but maybe you guys can just report back on that or give us some thoughts at a future board meeting or something. Thanks for all you do. Okay. So do we need a motion on this to approve resolution 2102, adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2022, as well as to set the date and time for the public hearing, at least the date, which is proposed as June the 14th of 2021. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion as stated by Alex.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
I'll second that.
Second, thank you, Jason. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. Nicole?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Brenda?
Aye.
Thank you. Jason?
Aye.
Thank you. The other Jason?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Did I miss anybody? Except Leighton, and Leighton's and I as well. Okay, there's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next item is also to be presented by Lori, and it's an update or a report on UIA's fraud risk management assessment score. So Lori?
Thank you. Roger, do you want to put the board meeting packet back up on the screen? I have that in the packet. The state auditor's office has asked us. Oh, I can.
Yeah, if you got it handy,
Hang on.
sure.
Sorry. State auditors last year put in place a fraud risk assessment and asked each entity to complete this each year. We scored better this year than we did last year because of two things. We have requested confirmation from the board, each board member, of the completion of the online training available at the state auditor's office, introductory training for municipal officials for cities and towns. Oh, sorry. Hang on. Okay. The completion of the online training available from the auditor's office. I have most of those certificates. If you have completed that and haven't sent me your certificate, please do so. And also new board members, you may have completed this, you probably have completed this training for your own municipality, but if you can send us either the certificate or an email saying that you've completed that, that helps us with our score for the fraud assessment. We did score a 355 out of 395. The other increase in our score was the formation of the audit committee. The audit committee is made up of the members of the Utopia and UIA finance committee. That got us another 20 points. So we're doing pretty well. There's still room for improvement. We do not require our employees and elected officials to annually commit in writing to abide by a statement of ethical behavior. It's something that we could easily put in place. And also, we do not have a formal internal audit function. That is probably one that we're not going to be able to check off in the near future. We do have many checks and balances. We do have good separation of duties. And at 355, we do score in the very low risk range. So I feel like as a staff, we do a pretty good job of establishing internal controls and abiding by those internal controls.
Thank you, Lori. Are there any questions of the board regarding this process?
There's no resolution required. It's a discussion. This will be submitted to the state auditor's office once I get the signature of our CEO. And again, this is a process that we go through each year.
What does that do, Lori? Maybe you mentioned that and I missed it. I apologize.
It's a good question. We wanted to have it done before the June 30th of 21 audit. I called the state auditor's office. I haven't seen a specific due date on that, but they did confirm that this is to be, the review is to be done annually. So I'm not sure of the due date.
Okay. Do you know, this is a silly question I should know the answer to, but with regard to the online training, does the state auditor expect that you'll retake that same training every year if you've taken it previously, or does it have any kind of a shelf life to it? Do you recall?
Let me see what they say on here. I don't believe it has to be done annually. Oh, no, I think it's a one-time thing. Basically, it says within 4 years of term appointment and election date. So my guess would be maybe every 4 years it's a good idea to do it, but there isn't a standard requirement for that to be done every year.
Okay, I thought that may be helpful for those of us that have taken it previously to just be able to send an email confirming that, as opposed to having to retake it. It's pretty basic, but that's
and
good.
if you have sent me an email confirming it, I have that on file. You don't need to resend it.
Okay, could you, not here, but maybe Laurie, could you maybe send an email out to those who have not responded?
I will do that.
That way we'll tell them who that is.
Yes.
Okay. And I do think it would be good. It's a simple thing, but as you said, but I don't know if there's time to do the code of ethics or the pledge. You know, there's more things that govern our integrity than that, but certainly that's a way to get a few extra points and make a statement. At least it gives, if anybody wants to criticize, at least it takes something off the table for them to complain about. But
Agreed.
So, okay, well, thank you. Any questions? If not, we'll move on. Okay, thank you. Next item is a financial update. Again, Laurie.
This graph that all of you are familiar with still looks great. Our recurring revenue each month is a little over 2.5 million. 2 million, we hit the 2 million line for UIA this month, and Utopia is holding its own at a little over $600,000. So that there's no complaints about the revenue trends. I don't think. Does anyone have any complaints about the revenue trends? Okay, the next graph, this is combined UIA. So this is system-wide UIA Utopia recurring revenue growth. This is the 12-month moving average. We're getting close to $45,000 month over month increase in recurring revenue. And then this third chart is UIA revenue versus the bond obligation. There is already a sizable increase in the headroom that was available when we sold the Series 2021 bonds. We now have over $500,000 a month clearance from our revenue to the cumulative bond payments. And as we mentioned before, many of these are still in the cap I period. So West Point, the Morgan cap I period ends soon, but all of these others are in the cap I. So while we do have coverage, we are currently not having to make the debt service payments for several of these bonds. As we mentioned earlier, all of the cities that are the partner cities that have been completed, all of them have met their revenue requirements about a year ahead of schedule. West Point just very recently reached their revenue target. So all of those have been wildly successful. there any questions? Okay, that's really all I have.
Okay, thank you, Lori, and thank you to the whole Utopia team, UIA team, for all the great work. Just keeps getting better and better. It's because of you, so thank you. Next item is a network update. Roger.
Some of the other numbers we usually will share with everybody are these availability and subscriber numbers. Obviously, the charts look very, very good. This doesn't have the last month, so you've got a little bit of bump in here. We've changed a little bit in how we've done these charts, both from a systems perspective, which caused a little bit of a blip here, but the other change is including the Idaho Falls numbers. We'd never included in our numbers in the past the Idaho Falls subscribers, just because it's a little different situation there. But it's actually a pretty significant project for us at this point. So we've got over 1,000 customers in Idaho Falls network. We get a portion of the revenue for all of those. So as that grows, that helps our revenues, and so we are including them now in our subscriber counts, but it's not a significant number. I mean, it's just over 1,000. So out of the 30, we are just shy of 38,000 subscribers right now. So 1,000 of those being a little more than 1,000 out of Idaho Falls, but most of the growth coming just from our typical city projects. So the trends are very good. The take rates continue to grow. We usually look at take rates from a residential perspective, and those have been very, very good, growing in every single city. So no slowdowns. We constantly get questions about, well, aren't you worried about 5G? Aren't you worried about some other provider building things or upgrading their wireless or what? It's just like those things have been happening for 10 years, making incremental upgrades and incremental improvements, but fiber has cleared way past all of them in its ability to deliver a reliable, high quality service. And we continue to see the trend of people canceling, from all other services and moving over to fiber, and not just fiber, but our fiber. There are other options in some of these cities, not citywide, but definitely neighborhoods and areas that have some fiber availability. But the competitive marketplace of Utopia and all of its service providers and the reputation goes a long ways, and we still do pretty well in areas that have fiber. But those are just little cherry-picked areas here and there, so that they still don't meet the need for communities. So we're very happy with those numbers and our charts, and can expect to continue to do well. And like I said, that number, we love to just kind of know, how many customers we have at almost 38,000. It's just shy of that, and adding, 500-600 or so a month. That's a little lower than we'd like to see it. We'd like to push that up higher, but the last few months have been a little bit difficult in completing areas of construction. So there's a lot of stuff that's been built, a lot of fiber and conduit in the ground that's almost done, but not quite. And so I think we'll have several thousand addresses being released to sales, opening up a lot of new growth. So we should see that growth rate jump back up much higher than that the recent couple of months. As we release areas in Clearfield and Orem, West Valley City, we've got kind of a backlog of areas that are almost done. So that'll be good to see. There's the big opportunity here for a new city partnership that's coming up. We were hoping to have that approved and ready for counter approval at this meeting, but the timing of things didn't make that possible. But this would be a potential partnership with Pleasant Grove City. Pleasant Grove has that scheduled for tomorrow night. So obviously we like to see a city approve that, see what the support is from that city on how many votes they have on their city council. We've stated that we like to see unanimous support from their council, so that we can consider that in the counter approval UIA. But from a timing perspective, it's not here today to look at, but we don't want to necessarily wait for 2 months for our next UIA board meeting. So we'd like to have a meeting Thursday morning, just a special meeting with just that single agenda item. Did we pick a time on that, 8:30, or is that what, I think that's what we were considering. And I'm hoping we can come up with a quorum at 8:30 to consider that. But it's this, in its current structure, it's the same structure we've done in these other projects. It'd be basically a backstop from the city for the incremental financing cost of the project in that city to build out fiber to the home that's equal to the amount of customers and revenues we need to cover the debt service on that project. So it basically avoids all exposure to UIA, but the cities kind of get the benefit of piggybacking off of what we built. Comes out as a pretty nice mutual benefit and a shared risk type situation to some extent. Financially, it's not a risk, but certainly it's work and things that we have to take care of. But represents a good area of growth for us as well. So Pleasant Grove would be the biggest one we've done as a new partner city. I think it's a great area to do this in. I mean, I think we're not so much interested in trying to cherry pick the most profitable or whatever, but when we see something that looks very good from a take rate and demand perspective, we certainly go into that much more confident. And Pleasant Grove borders our highest take rate city, which is Linden City, which is, let me see what their latest take rate is. This doesn't have our latest month in the report. So we're probably even higher than this by now, but we are at 62.38% take rate in Linden. So to think that Pleasant Grove is very similar to Linden and geographically and demographically and demand and competitive options and everything like that, their take rate needed to break even on that project is, depending on how you blend and make assumptions on businesses and other revenue sources, it's down in the 25 to 30% range is all we would need to cover the debt service on that project. So from our perspective, it's incredibly low risk, both for us and for the city. So we're looking at it and pretty excited about it, and hope to have that for you at a meeting on Tuesday morning.
Thursday
Any questions? Sorry, what was that, Krista?
Thursday morning.
Oh, did I say something? All right, sorry, yeah, Thursday. Just a quick Zoom meeting, if we can do that. Have we checked anyone's schedules on that? It's kind of been flying quickly, so I don't know if we want to confirm that and maybe change schedules if that would help. But if you board members on this are willing to just check your schedules really quickly, if there's a better time Thursday morning, we could change it around. If it just we can't get a quorum Thursday morning, we could try for another date. We just don't want to let this sit too long as interest rates are kind of looking to tick up a little bit. We'd like to strike while the rates are very, very good right now.
Are there any board members at this point that know Thursday morning would not work?
We'll keep it short, I promise that. Okay,
Okay. Hearing none, let's plan on that. Okay. Hey, you're talking 8:30.
8:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And tentatively, if we hear back from a lot of people, if there's a problem, we could change the time, but we'll notice it at 8:30 and plan on that. And if it doesn't go well, obviously that's is subject to a vote at Pleasant Grove's meeting. So, it's possible we waive it off or it gets tabled or something like that. But assuming they approve that Tuesday night, we'd like to move forward with the meeting Thursday morning.
Okay, very good. Anything else on your update, Raj?
No, I think, things are good.
I have a quick question. As the neighborhoods get turned on, I mean, at my house, I get probably 3 door hangers and 6 mailers every week about Xfinity and all of those fun things. So as the neighborhoods get turned on, is there like a really good blanket of marketing materials that goes out? Because I know the city itself cannot really advertise more than that thing in the public meeting that we may have. That's about all we can do without getting in trouble from Comcast.
Yeah, so we do have mailers that go out, and we're actually starting a new series. Right now, I just got the final files this morning, in which when we start digging, you'll get a mailer, and it's like a progression. So, and it's probably about a 6 to 7 month progression that we're constantly hitting you. We don't have the funds to send 6 mailers a week like I do too. So we have to kind of use our advantages into that to see. So social media, when it gets turned up, people see, and then we kind of do some targeted social media and direct response campaigns when those areas get turned up as well.
Okay, good
combination. But yeah, I get you, Brenda. I get 1,000 at my house every week too.
Yeah, Comcast does spend a lot of money on marketing. We spend a lot too, but not nearly what they spend. So we try to keep it pretty conservative, but also very data driven, right? I mean, we're not just throwing money at various approaches. It's, we do a lot of analysis on how much money spent here results in how much actual signups and visibility, and we are constantly, increasing here, decreasing here based on the data we get back, and every opportunity we have to put in a way to measure the effectiveness of marketing, we do. So there's a lot of that. I mean, if you see our phone number or somewhere to call in, it's not our actual phone number, it's a marketing number. We can track how many calls came in because of that ad piece or whatever it may be, just to see where it works and where it doesn't work. And so we're constantly trying to be efficient with the money, but still have a pretty strong marketing presence. I think your team's doing a pretty good job.
Well, and it is nice if we do know when you turn on a neighborhood, just because then we can inform council members and they can do some marketing, because they get calls all the time if Utopia is available or not available.
We can definitely do that, Brenda. And I think that some of the cities, as we talk to some of the social media people, they are very willing to announce when a new area comes on your socials. So
okay.
We'll make sure we pass that along to you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Brenda. That's very good feedback. We need that to keep on top of that. The marketing is a very important piece.
One last thing, as we hit into the summer months, I know we've talked to a lot of cities about like events are coming back this summer where they were all canceled last summer. So if you want us at any of your events, just please reach out and we will put it on the list of places we need to be, since we are really starting our calendar for our summer events right now.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from any board members? But Mayor Aitchison, nice to see you joined. We're just at the end of the agenda. It was fairly short this morning. Do you have anything you'd like to share? Or
perfect timing, right? Perfect timing. I'm sure all is well in Utopia land. So thank you.
Yeah, it is. We were just talking about how well Linda's doing just before he got in, a 62% average take rate. So congratulations.
Well, we've been committed from the get-go, so hopefully we'll stay that way. And hopefully our sister city, Orem, is finally getting to the point that they're able to benefit from Utopia.
Yeah, I think those were in the 40s, just looking at them. And then we were just talking about Pleasant Grove. Pleasant Grove set to hopefully approve a contract tomorrow night.
Oh, that's great. Mayor Fugel's finally come around, huh?
Yeah.
We think so.
Yeah.
See how the vote goes.
Well, I apologize for tuning in late. I just had other commitments, but thank you.
No, you're just fine. Just wanted to acknowledge you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your support. Well, are there any other issues that we need to discuss this morning? Maybe I'll just mention quickly, Matt Dahl is a new member, or a permanent member, I guess, if I misstate that, Matt. Kane Loader, our dear friend and fellow warrior, if you will, through the tough years, really tough years, has retired. And we acknowledge him and appreciate all that Kane did and all that Midvale did. But Matt's taking the reins there and is going to fill in and be the representative on UIA. So we appreciate you, Matt, and all you're doing. And also want to acknowledge Jason and then Nicole. Nicole's another warrior from the early days of Utopia. And it's nice to have you involved in anything, Nicole. She's always brings a toughness and a clarity and a competency that we need. So, and then all the staff, thank you for what you're doing. All the board members, just a great group of people. That's why this organization has worked and does work and will continue to work, is the quality, I believe anyway, the quality of the people. And so it's a privilege to interact with all of you. So wish you the very best, and
so Alex,
you and your families be safe.
Alex, if I can
Yes,
just
Mayor.
say real quickly, thank you. Linden City appreciates the acknowledgement of our payments that we made, and it was nice to see that check come to our coffers. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. We were just talking, not to belabor it earlier, about we've reached the milestone of being able to complete here shortly all of the original build out in all the original cities, which is a significant thing. We were talking about coming up with some ideas, maybe where we could reach out to the individual cities in a council meeting or something and acknowledge the support and express appreciation and just celebrate that just a little bit. So hopefully in the not too distant future, there'll be some staff coming to your city mayor to tell you thank you publicly and for the support that Lyndon's given and being a big part of the organization, and to every elected body. So it's exciting. There are a lot of people who predicted and prophesied that day would never come. So but it's here. So anyway, thank you all.
Glad everybody hung in there. So let's keep going.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor. Any objection to that? If not, okay, Jason, thank you. Well, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, very good. Well, thank you again, and appreciate all of you, and have a wonderful day. Best to you.